Well, the population of pythons in the Everglades has dramatically dropped.
Burmese pythons have devastated native wildlife in the Everglades.
They found the first body near a drainage canal, a native snake, mouth open, gasping for air that would not come. Then they found another and another. No bite marks, no crushed bones, just dead snakes with their necks stretched out like they were choking on something invisible. This was not a predator attack. This was something else, something living inside them. When the lab results came back, one researcher said exactly 4 words. This is bad news. The leaked files tell a story nobody wanted public. It is not about giant pythons anymore. It is about a microscopic assassin hiding in their lungs, and it is spreading faster than anyone predicted. The silent massacre trail cameras stationed deep in the river of grass are supposed to count the wildlife. Researchers pull the SD cards every few months and tally the raccoons, opossums, and bobcats. These motion-activated devices capture everything that moves through their field of view. When they plugged in the latest batch from the southern invasion zone, they saw nothing. Hour after hour of empty frames. Sawgrass swaying in the breeze, shadows shifting across the water. No eyes reflecting in the infrared. No curious noses investigating the camera. No life at all. Just void. One researcher described it as watching security camera recordings after a crime has been committed. The scene is there. The evidence is there. But the bodies have already been removed. The numbers that emerge from this data are apocalyptic. In the core python zones, raccoon populations have crashed by 99.3%. Out of every 1,000 raccoons that used to live there, 7 remain. Opossums are down 98.9%. Marsh rabbits have vanished entirely from areas where they once thrived in thousands. Bobcats have declined by 87%. The entire mammal population of the southern Everglades has been vacuumed up. For 20 years, everyone blamed the Burmese python. A 20-foot snake needs a lot of calories. A large female consumes her body weight in prey every month. With 300,000 of them slithering through the swamp, the math seemed obvious. But the speed of the collapse never added up. Ecosystems are resilient. Prey populations bounce back. Predator and prey usually find some kind of balance. This was not decline. This was not a bad decade. This was systematic extermination. Cameras positioned in the buffer zones, areas where pythons exist but have not yet taken over, revealed the missing piece. The surviving animals had changed their behavior completely. Raccoons stayed in dens for days at a time, too terrified to forage for food. When they did emerge, they moved in short, panicked bursts. Rabbits stopped breeding altogether. Opossums starved because they refused to search for meals. The pythons created a landscape of fear so intense that animals died without ever being touched. The mere scent of a python triggered survival instincts so strong that prey species essentially shut down. But that was just the surface horror, the visible layer of the disaster. The cameras eventually captured something else moving through the swamp. Something native, something small, something dying in a way that made hardened field scientists physically recoil from their monitors. The invisible killer. Field teams started noticing dead snakes a few years ago. Not pythons, native species, pygmy rattlesnakes, corn snakes, ribbon snakes, garter snakes. Tough little survivors that had thrived in Florida for millions of years, weathering hurricanes and droughts and fires. They were lying on trails with mouths gaping open, necks stretched out at unnatural angles, desperately trying to breathe air that would not come. When researchers brought these specimens back to the lab and cut them open, the room went silent. The lungs were destroyed, not damaged, not infected, destroyed. Packed with dozens of writhing parasitic worms swimming in pools of blood and shredded tissue. Some snakes had so many worms that their lungs had essentially ceased to function as organs. The organism responsible, Raelietiella orientalis, the Asian snake lungworm. This parasite evolved alongside Burmese pythons in Southeast Asia over millions of years. The pythons carry it in their respiratory systems, but never get sick. Their immune systems treat it like a minor inconvenience, a roommate they barely notice. They are asymptomatic super spreaders walking through the swamp, shedding microscopic eggs everywhere they go. Florida's native snakes have zero defense against it. No evolutionary history, no immune response, nothing. When the larvae enter a native snake, They do not simply take up residence, they wage total war on their host. The worms burrow through the stomach wall like tiny drills. They migrate through the body cavity, navigating toward the lungs. Once there, they anchor themselves to the tissue and begin feeding on blood. They shred the delicate lung, tissue as they grow. They cause massive inflammation that swells the airways shut. They physically block the passages that carry oxygen. The infected snakes suffocate from the inside out, slowly, over weeks. Videos recovered from field research show the final stages of infection. You see these animals gasping like fish pulled from water, mouths opening and closing in a desperate rhythm, bodies writhing as lungs clogged with parasites fail to deliver oxygen. In the terminal phase, the worms grow large enough to crawl out of the snake's mouth as it dies. The transmission cycle is brutally efficient, a masterpiece of parasitic evolution. A python deposits waste somewhere in the swamp. That waste contains thousands of lungworm eggs invisible to the naked eye. A cockroach or beetle, creatures that thrive on decaying matter, feeds on the contaminated waste. The eggs hatch inside the insect. A frog eats the infected cockroach. The larvae migrate into the frog's tissue. A native snake eats the frog. 3 steps. 1 healthy snake becomes 1 dying snake. The larvae hatch in the snake's digestive system within days. They chew through the stomach lining and enter the body cavity. They navigate unerringly toward the lungs and set up permanent residence. Within weeks, the snake struggles to breathe. Within months, it is dead. Here is the nightmare scenario that keeps researchers awake at night. The parasite no longer needs the pythons to survive and spread. It has established itself in Florida's native ecosystem. It cycles through cockroaches, frogs, and snakes entirely on its own. The pythons were just the delivery system. The worm has found a new home. Remove every single python from the Everglades tomorrow, and the plague continues unabated. Infected snakes have been documented as far north as Jacksonville. The parasite has escaped the python's limited South Florida range and is now racing up the peninsula through the native food web. It moves through species that the pythons never touch. Internal reports obtained from the leak suggest multiple native snake species face regional extinction within the next 2 decades. Not from pythons eating them. From the invisible hitchhiker the pythons brought across the Pacific Ocean. Only 1 native species shows any meaningful resistance. Cottonmouth water moccasins handle the infection better than other snakes. Their survival rates are higher. Their infections are less severe. Nobody knows exactly why. Something about their immune system or their semi-aquatic lifestyle provides partial protection. They are either naturally resistant or simply the last species to fall. If you think a microscopic worm is scarier than a 20-foot snake, hit subscribe, because what we found fighting back is even crazier. How we got here. The pythons did not invade Florida on their own. We invited them. In the 1990s, the exotic pet trade was booming and completely unregulated. You could walk into any flea market in South Florida and buy a baby Burmese python for $10. They were cute, they were docile, they curled up in your hands like living jewelry. They made great conversation pieces at parties. What the sellers never mentioned? These snakes grow fast, very fast. Within a year, that adorable baby is 6 feet long and eyeing your cat with predatory interest. Within 3 years, it is too large for most people to safely handle alone. Thousands of overwhelmed owners made the same choice. They drove to the edge of the Everglades, opened a pillowcase, and released their unwanted pets into the wild. They told themselves they were being humane, giving the animal a chance at freedom. They were lighting a biological time bomb. Some pythons escaped from a reptile breeding facility during Hurricane Andrew in 1992. But the real damage came from ordinary people, year after year, snake after snake, shaking pillowcases into the sawgrass. The Everglades is essentially a replica of the python's native habitat in Southeast Asia. Same temperature range, same crushing humidity, same abundance of easy prey, and nothing in Florida recognized a python as a threat. A rabbit knows to run from a fox. A raccoon knows to climb when a coyote approaches. But no Florida animal had any evolutionary programming to identify the muscular coil hidden in the vegetation as a deadly ambush predator. The pythons did not hunt, they harvested. One female python lays up to 100 eggs per clutch. She can breed every year for decades. Do the math. One breeding pair becomes 100 snakes. Those 100 become 10,000. Within 2 decades, 300,000 pythons own the swamp. Florida fought back with everything available. Python challenges offered cash bounties. Professional hunters patrolled the levees. Scientists implanted male pythons with tracking devices and followed them to breeding aggregations. For every snake removed, hundreds more hatched in hidden nests. And, while everyone focused on the giant invader, they could see, nobody noticed what it carried inside its lungs. The Emperor returns. Deep in the longleaf pine forests of the Apalachicola Bluffs, a truck pulls up on a dirt road. Volunteers step out carrying pillowcases that move with a strange, muscular weight. They walk into the trees, kneel beside ancient gopher tortoise burrows, and release something magnificent back into its ancestral home. The eastern indigo snake. Picture a snake made of gunmetal and midnight oil, nearly 9 feet of fearless, iridescent muscle, scales that shimmer blue-black in the sunlight like polished obsidian. The longest native snake in North America, the apex predator of the serpent world. And they have one very specific diet. Other snakes, rattlesnakes, copperheads, cottonmouths, water snakes, rat snakes. The indigo eats them all without hesitation. It is completely immune to American pit viper venom. A rattlesnake bite that would kill a human in hours does. Nothing to an indigo. It does not constrict its prey like a python. It simply grabs the victim with jaws like a hydraulic vice and swallows it alive, still thrashing. In the snake world, the indigo has no equal. It is an emperor among serpents. Habitat destruction and road mortality wiped the indigo from northern Florida decades ago. A coalition of zoos and wildlife agencies launched a breeding program in secret. They raised these emperors in captivity for years, carefully preparing them for wild conditions, waiting for the right moment to strike back. That moment arrived. The releases began in the Apalachicola region, far north of the python invasion. Magnificent blue-black snakes emerged from transport containers. They tasted the air with forked tongues, sensing a world their ancestors ruled. Then they vanished into gopher tortoise burrows that their kind had used for thousands of generations. For years, nobody knew if the program would succeed. Captive-bred animals fail in the wild, all the time. They starve because they cannot hunt effectively. They fall to predators they have never encountered. They simply wander until they die. Then, a trail camera deep in the forest captured an image that had biologists cheering in their offices. A baby indigo snake. Tiny, perfect, wild-born. The emperors are breeding on their own. They are reclaiming their kingdom one hatchling at a time. The question everyone asks, what happens when the indigo snake meets the Burmese python? An adult indigo cannot take down a full-grown python. That is a weight class mismatch no amount of aggression can overcome. A 20-foot python outweighs an indigo by a factor of 15. But baby pythons? Juveniles still finding their way in the swamp? Those are absolutely on the menu. The indigo does not distinguish between native snakes and invasive ones. A snake is a snake. Food is food. The indigo is an active forager. It does not sit and wait for prey to wander past. It patrols its territory, relentlessly, investigating every burrow, every brush pile, every hollow log. If indigo populations establish themselves along the northern edge of the python invasion, they become a living firewall. They intercept hatchlings before those hatchlings grow into monsters. It is a biological gamble, a Hail Mary pass with the ecosystem at stake. Florida's best hope for containing the northern spread. But the leaked data revealed something nobody expected. The native resistance is not just coming from reintroduced snakes raised in zoos. It is coming from animals that were supposed to be victims. The rebellion. Deep in Big Cypress National Preserve, researchers had been monitoring a python nest for weeks. A massive 16-foot female guarded her clutch, coiled protectively around dozens of eggs. The plan was to wait for her to leave, then destroy the nest and count the losses. A trail camera captured what happened instead. A bobcat walked into the frame. Under normal circumstances, a 25-pound bobcat gives a 16-foot python a very wide berth. Basic survival math dictates retreat. the snake outweighs the cat by a factor of 10. One wrong move, one moment of hesitation, and the bobcat becomes a meal. This cat did not retreat. The recording shows the bobcat circling the nest with predatory focus, watching, calculating. The female python was sluggish that night, possibly mid-shed, possibly exhausted from weeks of guarding eggs without eating. The bobcat seemed to recognize the opportunity presenting itself. It attacked. The cat darted in low and fast, slashing at the python's coils with fully extended claws. Then it danced backward before the snake could mount a counterstrike. The python lunged repeatedly, mouth gaping, but the bobcat's reflexes operated on a different speed entirely. It made the snake look like it was moving through water. Over the course of several minutes, the cat systematically harassed the python. Slash and retreat, slash and retreat. The snake grew more defensive, more exhausted, until she finally abandoned the nest and retreated into the darkness. Then the bobcat went to work on the eggs. It did not just destroy them, it ate them. One by one, dozens of future pythons eliminated in a single night by a predator that was supposed to be prey. But the truly shocking discovery came from analyzing recordings across other locations. Multiple trail cameras caught bobcats actively hunting and killing juvenile pythons up to 6 feet in length. Some recordings showed bobcats caching python carcasses, carefully burying them under leaves and debris to eat later. Caching behavior is extremely significant. It means the bobcats are not just defending themselves or their territory from a threat. They are treating pythons as a reliable food source. They are incorporating an invasive species into their regular diet. They are learning. Scientists call this phenomenon biotic resistance, the process by which native ecosystems adapt to fight off foreign invaders. It usually takes decades to develop. Sometimes it never happens at all. The invader wins permanently. In the Everglades, biotic resistance is happening in real time. Evolution on fast forward. The bobcats are not fighting alone. American alligators are targeting pythons in ways researchers never documented before. Young snakes that venture too close to the water's edge are being ambushed and consumed. Alligators have started patrolling canal banks during python breeding season. Some researchers believe they are specifically hunting python nests during the dry season, when dropping water levels make nests more accessible. There are credible reports, unconfirmed but taken seriously, of Florida panthers killing adult pythons. The Florida panther is the rarest large cat in North America, with fewer than 200 individuals in the wild. If these apex predators are learning to hunt pythons, it changes the entire equation. The recording of that. Bobcat standing over the destroyed python nest, time-stamp glowing in the corner, represents the most important wildlife documentation captured in Florida in 20 years. The swamp is not a passive victim waiting to die. It is fighting back with claws and teeth. The front line. We are standing at a crossroads that will determine the future of one of America's great wild places. To the south lies a biological dead zone, empty camera frames where thousands of animals once lived, silence where there should be a chorus of life, an ecosystem essentially sterilized of its mammal populations. To the north lies the last line of defense, reintroduced indigo snakes patrolling the pine forests, bobcats learning to hunt a new prey species, alligators adapting their ambush tactics, the final battleground where this war will be decided. The pythons continue their slow march northward every year. Cold temperatures during harsh winters limit their advance. A hard freeze kills exposed pythons. But the parasite they carry faces no such barrier. It spreads through the native food web faster than anyone predicted, racing ahead of the snakes themselves. Every year, the invasion line advances further into new territory. Every year, more native wildlife disappears behind it. Every year, the window for effective intervention grows smaller. The leaked files reveal a disaster that government agencies have been reluctant to acknowledge publicly. An ecosystem in active collapse. A parasite outbreak that cannot be contained by any known method. Native species fighting for survival against overwhelming numerical odds. But the files also reveal something unexpected. Adaptation, resistance, evolution. Wild animals refusing to surrender their ancestral home without a fight. The Everglades has survived ice ages that transformed the landscape, hurricanes that reshaped coastlines, droughts that dried the swamp to cracked mud, fires that burned for months, decades of development and pollution and neglect. Through all of it, the swamp persists. It endures. It adapts. The question is whether it survives this. The data tells a story that is still being written in the sawgrass and cypress. On one side, an army of giant constrictors 300,000 strong, and the invisible plague they carry in their lungs. On the other, reintroduced emperors, adapting predators, and the stubborn resilience of a swamp that refuses to die quietly. Who wins? Nobody knows. The researchers who leaked this information wanted the world to see what is at stake. They wanted you to understand the silence in those empty recordings. But they also wanted you to see that bobcat standing victorious over a destroyed nest. The fight is not over. The cameras are still rolling, and the swamp is still fighting. If you think the Everglades has a chance, hit like and subscribe. The next chapter is already being written.